What if a village could appear seemingly out of nowhere, flourish for decades, and then vanish so completely? Its very existence becoming a question mark in the annals of history? Imagine the lives, the routines, the shared stories of people whose footprints the world almost forgot. This is not a fable, but a paradox that forces us to question how human societies perceive existence, memory, and the fragility of collective life. History often records the monumental, but hidden within the folds of time are communities that emerge briefly like sparks, illuminating the landscape for a moment before disappearing into obscurity. The village I want to take you to today is one such spark. A place whose story challenges our understanding of time, adaptation, and the invisible signals that societies emit and respond to. In the scientific and philosophical lens, a village like this is not just a set of buildings or a cluster of people. It is a complex system, a dynamic network of energy, cognition, and perception, resonating briefly with frequencies of survival, culture, and human ingenuity. Its sudden appearance and disappearance are not merely historical curiosities. They are lessons in resilience, collective psychology, and the subtle architecture of human perception. Why does this matter? Because studying these fleeting civilizations allows us to understand the very nature of human adaptation, the limits of perception, and the hidden mechanisms through which societies manage stress, uncertainty, and change. The village becomes a laboratory, and its people, unwitting neuroscientists of their own collective behavior, demonstrating how the brain of society organizes itself when exposed to extreme conditions. Historians, anthropologists, and archaeologists have long puzzled over villages that emerge in the historical record without precursors, flourishing in isolation, and then fading almost entirely, leaving behind artifacts, oral traditions, or scattered ruins that suggest remarkable complexity. Unlike the grand narratives of empires, these micro-societies operate in the margins. Their survival and disappearance are dictated by variables often invisible to us. Environmental stressors, resource flux, social cohesion, and the psychological thresholds of collective perception. Imagine a small community nestled within a valley whose climate, soil, and water access allow a brief equilibrium. The people in this village develop systems, agriculture, social hierarchy, conflict resolution, not unlike neurons forming connections. Each individual acts as a node, transmitting information, responding to feedback, and maintaining the stability of the whole. When a disruption occurs, be it climate change, disease, external invasion, or resource depletion, the village responds as a system. Its structures may adapt, the social fabric may rewire itself, but there is a critical point beyond which the system cannot maintain coherence. Then, abruptly, the village disappears, not as a violent catastrophe, but as an adaptive contraction of the network. But internally, the knowledge, the cultural logic, the behavioral algorithms are encoded into human memory, folklore, or even genetics, waiting to resurface in a different form elsewhere. Consider the neurological metaphor. The village is a brain. Its houses are neurons, its roads synapses. Communication is constant decisions about food distribution, child rearing, and conflict resolution are the neurotransmitters that travel through this network. When the village faces environmental stress, it triggers collective stress responses, analogous to how our amygdala and prefrontal cortex respond to perceived threats. Panic, ingenuity, cooperation, and adaptation all interplay in a delicate feedback loop. In some cases, the stress is managed successfully, and the village thrives. In others, the overload forces an unplanned shutdown. The disappearance of the village mirrors the pruning of synapses. During human development, a painful but necessary reorganization that ensures long-term cognitive efficiency. The transient existence of the village illustrates a principle rarely discussed in mainstream history. Survival is not always about permanence. Sometimes it is about intelligent, temporary organization, about the ability of a system to appear, operate optimally for a period, and then dissolve before catastrophic failure can propagate. Psychologically, humans are wired to detect continuity. Our perception of society depends on historical permanence. When confronted with communities that emerge and vanish, our cognitive frameworks strain. Why did they appear? Why did they disappear? The answers are not merely historical. They are reflections of our understanding of perception, memory, and causality. In the case of this vanished village, clues lie scattered in unexpected places, oral traditions from neighboring settlements, carbon-dated remnants of dwellings, pottery shards with traces of previously unknown alloys. Each artifact acts like a piece of a neural puzzle, allowing modern researchers to reconstruct a picture of collective cognition that is invisible to the casual observer. We begin to understand that human society is much like neurons are capable of emergent behaviors that only become visible when we examine the network holistically. One moment the village is vibrant, a living organism of human intention. The next it ceases to be, leaving only the faint electrical signature in the historical record. A reminder that human behavior is both ephemeral and encoded. One might ask, if these villages were so fragile, why did they appear at all? This question touches on evolutionary psychology and the sociology of small groups. Humans are adaptive agents, constantly experimenting with configurations of cooperation, hierarchy, and resource management. The emergence of a village in isolation is akin to a social experiment, a subset of a population testing the viability of a particular model of living. These experiments are inherently high risk. They are explorations on the edge of environmental, cognitive, and social limits. Yet they are essential for the larger evolutionary landscape. Just as mutations in DNA are rare but necessary for adaptation, these transient communities are microcosmic tests, encoding successful strategies into the broader fabric of human culture. A village that disappears may seem like a failure, but its underlying knowledge survives, diffusing into neighboring populations and influencing future societal arrangements. It is an elegant if unrecognized mechanism of human learning and resilience. Now consider the perception of time. To the people within the village, their lives unfold in a continuous present, punctuated by seasons, rituals, and social milestones. To the historian centuries later, their existence appears as a brief blip, almost like an illusion. Here lies a fascinating cognitive paradox. Collective perception is bounded by memory and recording mechanisms. The village's inhabitants are fully aware of the stakes, risks, and strategies they employ. Their temporal horizon is immediate, informed by generational knowledge. To an external observer, their narrative is fragmented, a ghostly signal across time. This echoes neuroscience. The brain constructs coherent narratives from fragmented data. History reconstructs continuity from discontinuous events. The village, though ephemeral, demonstrates how human systems navigate immediate perception and long-term planning. As we reconstruct this village, we see patterns of decision-making, revealing the collective psychology of small societies. Resource allocation, conflict resolution, social cohesion, and ritual serve as stabilizing feedback loops. Each individual's actions reverberate through the network. When stress exceeds tolerance thresholds, drought, disease, predation, the system shifts. It may expand its network, forming alliances or modifying hierarchies. Or it may contract, prioritizing survival of essential nodes. Here, disappearance is adaptive. It is a strategic retreat to prevent systemic collapse. The village vanishes, but the energy, knowledge, and cultural algorithms persist. History is less a record of survival, more a record of adaptation. The village serves as a living case study, demonstrating how adaptation shapes subsequent networks. Philosophically, this raises profound questions about existence and significance. What does it mean for a community to exist if its traces are fleeting? If a village disappears yet influences countless others indirectly, has it truly vanished? Influence is not merely proportional to visible presence. In a connected world, even ephemeral nodes transmit signals that resonate far beyond their immediate locality. The vanished village is not a failure of permanence. It's a demonstration of subtle, distributed influence. Its disappearance challenges the human craving for permanence and invites us to reconsider historical significance. Perhaps the measure of a society is not in its endurance but in its capacity to transmit information, adapt dynamically, and shape subsequent networks. Twists emerge when we consider that what appears as weakness, fragility, disappearance, transience, often a marker of systemic intelligence. Neuroscience shows us that pruning, suppression, and temporary inactivity are essential for maintaining overall network function. Similarly, historical systems employ apparent weakness as a protective strategy. The village that disappears may prevent overextension, disease proliferation, or resource depletion, preserving knowledge and culture for the broader network of human civilization. The moment of disappearance may be the most sophisticated form of resilience. By withdrawing, the community protects its essence, transmitting critical information. This information goes to neighbors, migrating populations, or even embedding lessons in collective memory and ritual. What seems like loss is actually long-term preservation. The story of this village also invites reflection on human perception itself. How often do we mistake visibility for significance? How often do we equate permanence with success? Our brains are conditioned to prioritize what is present, measurable, and continuous. Yet the lessons of vanished communities suggest a different logic. Significance may reside in the subtle, the transient, the ephemeral. The signals emitted by a short-lived society, like fleeting neural activations, may trigger adaptive responses elsewhere, amplifying impact far beyond their temporal boundaries. History, then, is not merely a chronicle of the visible and enduring. It is a map of signals, interactions, and resonances. Many of these leave only faint traces but produce profound effects. In reconstructing this village, we see the interplay between environment, social cognition, and systemic stress. Its material artifacts reveal ingenuity agriculture adapted to microclimates, construction techniques minimizing resource use, storage methods preserving essential commodities through uncertainty. Its social structures, inferred from the spatial arrangement of homes and communal spaces, suggest hierarchies optimized for coordination and risk management. Rituals, inferred from symbolic objects, point to mechanisms of emotional regulation, collective memory, and social cohesion. Each element, whether material or immaterial, is a node in the larger cognitive system of the village. Its disappearance, therefore, is not a void but a reconfiguration. It's an adaptation of a highly complex network under extreme constraints. What can we learn from this, beyond historical curiosity? The village serves as a mirror for modern societies, illustrating that the fragility of systems is often hidden beneath apparent stability. Resilience may require temporary contraction, and significance is not always visible in real time. It challenges our understanding of progress, permanence, and adaptation. It reminds us that human societies, like neural networks, thrive not merely through accumulation but through dynamic responsiveness, pruning, and signal transmission. The lessons extend to psychology, urban planning, ecology, and governance. Systems are defined not just by what persists, but by how they manage stress. They are defined by how they transmit knowledge and adapt to shifting conditions. Ultimately, the vanished village is both a historical fact and a philosophical metaphor. It illustrates the invisible architecture of human behavior, the cognitive dynamics of small societies, and the subtle intelligence embedded in adaptive disappearance. It invites us to reconsider the value we assign to permanence, the signals we overlook in transience, and the deep interconnected nature of human experience. By studying such phenomena, we gain insight into our own collective networks, the neuropsychology of decision-making, and the mechanisms through which human knowledge and culture propagate across time. The village reminds us that sometimes the most profound lessons come from those who vanish quietly, leaving echoes that ripple far beyond their temporal existence. As we reflect on the story of this village, we are left with questions rather than definitive answers. How many other invisible communities have shaped human history? How do transience and fragility contribute to long-term resilience? Can understanding these fleeting systems help us design better social structures today, capable of adapting to unprecedented change? These questions compel us to look beyond surface appearances, to consider the hidden signals and systemic intelligence embedded in human behavior. The village, though gone, continues to speak not in monuments or chronicles, but in the resonance of its existence, in the patterns it etched into the human mind and society. If this story has sparked your curiosity, if it made you pause and rethink the way history, psychology, and human systems intersect, consider exploring further. Share your thoughts in the comments, engage with the questions it raises, and join a community fascinated by the hidden, subtle forces that shape our world. Like the vanished village, your insight can ripple outward, influencing the networks around you. Subscribe to Past Lens for more explorations into the hidden layers of history, where every story is a signal, every event a lesson, and every disappearance an invitation to deeper understanding.